You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. I had someone recently ask me if I am ever going to change the way that I start my podcast episode. They're like, are you ever going to do it different? Are you going to change it up? And I was like, oh, heck no, never. And she's like, well, do you think it might get repetitive? Maybe people get annoyed with how repetitive that is. I said, I actually hope it does, because repetition is how beliefs are formed. I want nothing more than for my listeners who have spent years hearing the opposite to know that they are amazing, that they are beautiful, that they're enough, that they're lovable, that they are worthy. So yes, I am going to repeat it every single freaking week until it starts to be true for you. So I thought that was funny. No one challenged me on how I'm going to open my podcast. Just kidding. All right. She was genuinely curious, but truly share that because I really am intentionally saying that at the start of every episode. I really believe it. I know that when I didn't believe things like that, I held on to sometimes other people's belief in me, about me, people that I trusted, until I could actualize it myself. So there you go. You're stuck with it. All right. Real quick, I wanted to remind everybody is that the live Q&A that I do the first Thursday of every month, I used to do it at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I moved it starting in April to 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 Central, 6 Eastern, just to switch it up a little bit, get those of you who have not been able to attend during the day to be able to schedule that time more so in the evening to be able to make that free session. If you haven't registered for that, go to amiewoolsey.com. If you have registered that, you will get the email reminder with the new time. Hopefully, I will see you then. I have also set the date for the next Dating from Within workshop, June 11th through 13th, a couple hours with me each night. They are recorded, so if you can make every single night, you will get the recording for a limited time. It does come with a workbook that you will have forever. Tons of information of how to come back to you, how to come back to yourself, how to date yourself. Whether you are not ready to date, you are ready, you are dating. This workshop really meets you where you're at because it is all about you. Dating again after betrayal is different. And when you've lived through betrayal, not knowing what healthy really is or isn't, not trusting yourself, feeling like you'll never be able to trust again, where your nervous system remembers, your body remembers, your heart remembers. And so for those of you that are like, hell no, it is because of that. It is still remembering. So learning how to trust yourself again, cultivate that secure attachment. We're going to talk about all of it. That if you ever want to, or you are ready to date again, you're going to approach it in a completely different way. Again, 3 evenings, 2 hours, and then some with me each night, recorded sessions, workbook, live Q&A with Scott at the end of the workshop for those of you that want to participate in that. You're honestly getting over 6 hours with me for less than a single session. You can't pass it up. Join me, register today, and go to amiewoolsey.com or the link in the show notes. All right, last week we had a really meaningful conversation with David Rico about trust. Not just trusting other people again, but trusting yourself, right? Trusting that you can handle life, trusting that you can survive hard things, trusting that even if someone disappoints you or hurts you, you won't abandon yourself in the process. I know for so many of you, that conversation probably stirred up a lot. I did love some of the feedback that I got around that and what that episode meant to some of you, because learning to trust yourself again after betrayal or divorce is not just that mindset shift. It is a lived experience. It's something that we have to practice, sometimes moment by moment. And one of the places where that self-trust gets tested, I think the most, is in those quiet moments, the everyday moments, the moments when the house is quiet because your kids are at the other parent's house, the moments when you realize you were now doing life differently than you ever expected and didn't choose. Which is why today I want to talk about something that so many of you struggle maybe to even put words to. And sometimes it gets lumped in, like the word alone. I feel alone. I am alone. It kind of just gets lumped into one big old thing. But there is a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. And I want to talk about that today. Those two things are not the same. They're not the same emotionally, physically. And if we don't separate them, I think it's really easy to start believing something is wrong with us, even something is wrong with us intrinsically, or that our life is empty, pointless, useless, when we are actually experiencing grief. And people would say things to me, they would say things that were meant to be comforting. I will totally give them the benefit of the doubt around that. But when you're in it, it can feel really disconnecting from your reality. Like someone would say, you're going to find someone so amazing. And honestly, inside, I'm just like, shut up. like, shut up. You don't know that. How are you going to know that? Because I thought I found someone amazing. So shut up. Or when someone says, you know what? You are going to be fine alone. You're going to be just fine. Even if part of me believed that, there's another part that was grieving that because, and I will totally speak for me. I liked being partnered. I was a good partner. I valued it. I invested in it. I loved it. I built my life around it. So losing being partnered wasn't just an inconvenience due to divorce. It was a visceral loss. And unless someone has lived through that, I really compassionately just feel like it's impossible for anybody else to understand. So they can say all the things and they can give all the hope and they can tell you and try to toxic positivity right to like accepting that you're alone. But I think my main goal for this episode is to just say that right there. Then after this kind of divorce, you're alone because you didn't want this life. There's a lot of people that I would see on social media that really claiming this independent woman type lifestyle and they were free in it and they loved it. And that's great, right? That's absolutely great. I wanted partnership. That's what I longed for. That's what I signed up for. It's what I thought I had. Sometimes when people are making comments about alone or talking about alone, it can feel very invalidating to your experience with alone. And we need to separate it from being lonely. At a certain points in this process, the thought of being with someone else, and I would even after a year, 2, 3, I had people saying to me, like, are you ever gonna get married again? And why are you still single? And kind of starting to like get worried for me that I was still single. For a large part of that, my body would just have this visceral response when the idea of another relationship was offered, or I thought about getting another relationship. Like, on one hand, again, I wanted it, but then I also was like physically sick thinking about it too. It felt like my whole system was just shutting down. I was like, no, 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 no. That in of itself also felt so counterintuitive to that deep, I'll just call it my higher self, the part of me that genuinely believes in partnership, was good at it, loved it, and is grieving it. Now, for me and a lot of the women that I work with, that hard stance on never going to happen again, nope, nada, zilch, going to be alone forever. I do see that loosening up a little bit over time because not because you're suddenly ready or suddenly looking for it or want to look for it, but there is a loosening in the nervous system that I see happen when you start to feel safer in your own body and in your own space and in your own life. And you start stepping into more of that creator for more evidence that you're okay, that you're going to make it, that you're alive, that, okay, maybe I'm not going to die from crying, or maybe I can do this hard thing. Like that evidence starts to build up as well, which also I think plays into some of that loosening. It's not so rigid, never going, I have to try and be alone out of safety kind of a thing. I like to get to a place where there's always, or help my clients get to a place where there's always an invitation, there's always the possibility, not that they have to chase it or even reject it, just stay open. Just notice that it can be an option if and when they choose, but they don't have to choose now. When we slam doors shut, we can really get stuck there. We can get stuck there in so many different ways. We can identify with alone, which I'll talk about in a minute, but at least keeping it as an option and saying, but it's just not for me right now. That's what I mean by like loosening things up a little bit. But then there comes the question of, okay, yeah, I could maybe loosen up to the idea of being partnered again, but I'll never trust again. Now, if you have not listened to last week's episode with David Rico, oh my gosh, you got to listen to it. It really was so good. Such a sweet gentleman and such a good conversation. But this makes sense, right? How could I ever trust again? A lot of what we talked about last week, I'll just reiterate a little bit here, but it makes sense that if we're thinking, if I can never trust again, then maybe I can't be partnered again. What I do know is that real work after betrayal is not learning how to trust another person first. It's learning how to trust yourself first, like we talked about last week. In fact, I literally swear to God, Scott and I were just talking about this. We were in a conversation and he made this statement. He's like, well, look, I just want you to know, like, you can trust me. It's a good thing you know that I'll never do that and can trust me. And I go, no, actually, that's not true. And he's like, wait, what? I was like, no, that's not how this goes. I trust you right now today because I trust me. My trust in you goes through me first. I will never trust someone else and what they say they will or will not do before I trust myself. So, babe, I love you and I hear what you're saying. Thank you for saying that. However, I only trust you today because I trust me today, and me today isn't picking up on anything that I need to bring to your attention or that I need to listen to or that's a red flag or that concerns me. And that's how this goes. He's like, okay, yeah, good reminder. But that is how I can be in another relationship because I am not ever going to, I mean, as much as I absolutely adore my husband and think he's one of the kindest people I know that humans are humans. I know that humans make choices. I know that as long as I trust myself, listen to myself, believe myself, and not self betray, that I will listen, investigate, get informed, ask questions, that I'll no longer stay silent, that I won't like, right? All those things. That's what helps me trust. It's because it's through me. Self trust is what makes my relationship feel safe, not his guarantee in that moment that he'll never do that. The conversation actually continued and he was totally agreeing. He's like, it also makes sense that going through what you went through, what he went through, why it needs to be that way. And I said, well, yes, but that naive kind of trust that we all had never comes back. And it does give us an opportunity to step more firmly planted into this space of I trust me. And if I'm anchored into my realities, we're talking with David, right? Anchored into self, my reality, then anchored into my north, higher power, then how I perceive what I am picking up on, and then how I want to perceive others can really be that turning point when it comes to trust again. Where I think that can start in being alone is trusting that you can be alone, that you've got your back, that you can validate and feel the sadness in that aloneness. The difference between alone and lonely and understanding that for yourself, I do think is important. Some of you might have children still under your feet all day long, so much so that you're still trying to use the bathroom alone, right? Just like looking for a moment of being alone just to go to the bathroom. You might have friends, family, a church congregation, coworkers, people in your yoga class or whatever. You're still around people. When you're around people, you're co-regulating with people, just like Gesture and I were talking about. Even just sitting in a congregation at church and singing, you're co-regulating. When you're in, I was just telling a client, when you're in yoga class and you're still focused on yourself and you're doing your breathing, you've got other people in that room sharing that space, doing their own self-awareness, their own breathing, but in a collective way. Your nervous system is co-regulating with them. And in that moment, you're not lonely. So it's hard to say that you're lonely when we do have people in our life, even if it's just one person that we can call. That's one person that gives us evidence that we are not alone. We have even just one more person. And look, if you're listening and you're like, I don't even have that, email me, call me, I'll be your person. We can find people, we can co-regulate with people and have that human connection because it is not an option for our nervous system. It absolutely is survival level important. You listening might be relating to that and can acknowledge that and feel like, okay, yeah, all right. But what you are is alone. And this kind of alone is different. This is visceral, not verbal, like can't put words to because you just feel it on such a deep level. To have been partnered when I believe we were wired as humans for connection and relationship, to have been partnered and then suddenly be unpartnered because someone else made a choice that you did not see coming or choose, but because the relationship was broken in a way that they wouldn't repair, couldn't be done. That is a specific kind of alone. You were a good partner. I hope that many of you stop minimizing that. Sometimes I'll hear, well, I wasn't perfect. Freaking no one is. But if you living in your value system, believing that they were, you loved, you tried, you showed up, you bent until you probably broke trying to keep that relationship intact. You didn't violate it without repair. So this kind of alone is tangible, physical. It's something that I think is just felt in the body so deep that when someone tries to make it a positive or put a positive spin on it, it would make sense if it feels dismissive, hurtful, frustrating, all the things. I knew I had people who would help me if I needed them. I knew that I could call a friend, eventually make plans, working out our schedules and coordinating. I wasn't lonely, but standing in my bedroom at the end of the day, looking in the mirror, talking to myself about the day instead of my partner, that's alone. Grieving when my children are struggling and struggling at the hand of my ex, I can't fix it. That's alone. And I will tell you, not even being remarried takes that kind of alone away, at least not for me. I know that Scott loves my children deeply, but he is not their father. And so the weight and the pressure as a parent of your birth child that you carry alone because the other parent isn't carrying that with you in the same way, under the same values or the same thought processes, it is lonely. Those are the moments that hit the deepest, not the big social ones, those quiet ones. I know I validated this before. I don't even know how many episodes ago. I just feel like it can't be validated enough because it is so real. For me, the most important things that changed my experience in this, and first, it's separating the word lonely from alone. When I could do that, I could see that I was labeling my whole life as lonely, and it felt hopeless, felt heavy, it felt permanent, overwhelming. When I could acknowledge, okay, I have people, I have this, I have that, and I am alone in certain parts of my life now. It made it a, a little more bearable, and I didn't need to put a positive spin on it. It's not what I wanted because it's not what I chose, period. So I'm not going to do that today. Okay, so now what? Right? Now we grieve. You allow that feeling. You allow yourself to be validated in that feeling. Sometimes I can't remember what I've shared or not, but I really do try to be an open book. There's so much of my experience that I feel like I want to share, but it wasn't but a couple years ago that I re-experienced grief. I just did a few episodes on grief. Grief isn't linear. We're moving in and out of it. And I had one of those moments in my closet sobbing because of that reality smacking me upside the head again, that I'm alone in the pain for my child, watching my child struggle and knowing that the other parent has no idea, absolutely clueless. That lonely kind of grief, Scott couldn't take away. No one can take away. It needed to be felt on the floor of my closet in a bucket of tears. That's not wrong. That's not weak. That's not me not healed, or it's validating the reality of what happened over a decade ago. Like I mentioned in the grief episodes, being able to allow myself to process through that and feel that and validate that does allow me to pick myself up and move forward because I'm staying anchored in reality. I'm not trying to make it go away, and I'm not even trying to make my husband, their stepfather, step in and replace that, because that wouldn't work. Research is constantly showing that loneliness isn't defined by how many people are around you. It's defined by whether you feel emotionally understood and connected. That's what builds resilience. That's what post-traumatic growth is all about. Because me allowing myself to be in those periods of solitude and aloneness is where I build and rebuild and redefine my identity, my confidence, my self-trust, because that's the honest, raw place that I think it has to happen in. It's those places that I meet myself without distraction with all the other people. For a lot of people after divorce, that alone is probably an experience that you've had for the first time in your entire life, where maybe you've never allowed yourself to be alone. You've always had to surround yourself with someone, be coupled with someone. So I I want to validate that I'm sharing this episode and this topic and acknowledge that a lot of what I'm sharing is driven from my own personal experience. So I absolutely acknowledge that not everybody is going to think or feel or experience the same thing, nor should anybody. I am hoping and intending to share my way through it, that maybe you, even just a nugget, can help you find your way through it in your way. Like I mentioned in the grief episodes not too long ago, I think you have to find your way through it in your way and in your time. That's you being the chooser. That's you creating it in the way that you want to. Things to consider practicing when that alone feels incredibly heavy is just name it. Call it out. This feels incredibly heavy. And if you find yourself just saying, I feel lonely, maybe just stepping back and shifting to, okay, I might not be lonely because I could call people. I know I have at least one person. So in this moment, I am alone, and see what that small shift does, because the brain can see it's temporary, it's manageable. There is someone on this planet that can see you, hear you, and hold space for you. That's where it meets attachment theory. That's really, really important. And then maybe even break it down further. I am alone in this maybe situation, in this circumstance, and then name that. Let's just get a little bit more clear, because sometimes we slap the label of alone on it, and that can take us down. It can take us down in a spiral. Been there. The other thing to consider is, instead of waiting until it feels like you're in that desperate place, maybe start scheduling regular touch points with people in your life. I have a lot of clients doing this right now, and it's so beautiful. They're scheduling weekly coffee or lunch with different people, a phone call with a parent weekly, or a sibling or a friend. They're scheduling weekly yoga classes or art classes. They're walking with someone in the morning once a week. Schedule touch points where you are with someone safe that you trust. That structure can create central nervous system safety. It really does matter. So that's something to consider also. And then the other thing, of course, is building that relationship with yourself. I think this is one that a lot of us skip and jump into partnership with someone else, because we want to share our day out loud. We want to celebrate those small wins. We want to have someone acknowledge those hard moments. It can feel strange at first to acknowledge those things with you. That's what I was doing in my room. I had a routine of, as I was getting ready for bed and brushing my teeth, I would just talk to myself in the mirror. Now, for me, I imagine my higher power there with me, supporting me. I'm there. I'm looking at me. I'm validating the hard things in the day, acknowledging some things that I am grateful for in the day, things that I'm concerned about, things I didn't get done. That became part of my routine, because that connection with myself really does matter. And I never want to lose that, even in partnership. So I think this is a big one. However that looks for you, lean into that a little bit, explore that, get creative with it. When I stopped fighting the fact that parts of my life were now mine alone, that it really is where I finally started to see myself, where I needed to see myself. And that's where I learned to love myself. And the honesty in that process came with pain, grief, heartache, struggle, but also deeply connected to something that was bigger than me. When I couldn't believe that I was lovable enough on my own, anchoring to higher power, believing in safe people helped me in that moment. But ultimately, I had to find that for myself. It started with one tiny piece at a time. Did that mean that being alone suddenly became joyful? Hell no. Did it become purposeful? Yes. And I think that is a big difference. So, no, you didn't create the circumstance to which you are now alone in many ways. You get to choose to create the experience in it. That is the shift. We have to take that authorship over what happens next in our life. That is absolutely where your power lies. It is not in trying to avoid being alone or replacing that, fixing, solving, or identifying or being victim in. You don't need to rush into another relationship to make that go away, because it's not going to. Learning to stand inside your own life and building something so meaningful from where you are is beautiful. It's strong. I think that's the empowered divorce piece and the message that I hope can land at some point. So if today, everything I'm saying, if you just imagine, I'll tell this to my clients sometimes, if you just imagine a table sitting between the both of us, as you hear everything I'm saying, and just maybe let all of it sit on that table. Maybe as you walk away from this episode, you ask yourself, what's one thing that I can pick up from that table just today in practice? Just one thing. You don't have to pick up everything. And maybe everything isn't for you. And that is okay. More than okay. What is the one thing that you do want to pick up just today and start there. Choose that and allow that to create something different for you in this space, because you can. Take care, everybody.